Hey, good morning. Good morning. Welcome to First Free Church. My name is Aaron. I'm one of the pastors here. Glad you're joining us today. Would you stand to your feet? We're going to worship together, study God's Word, and do church today. Let's pray. Lord Jesus, we love you. And we pray, kingdom come, let your will be done right here in our midst. We want to bring you an offering of gratitude, of thankfulness. It says in your word, give thanks to the Lord, for he is good. His love endures forever. And so we say, come, have your way. Be lifted high in this place. We give you all the glory, all the honor. In Jesus' name, let's worship.
Let the King of my heart be the mountain where I run, the fountain I drink from. Oh, he is my song. Let the King of my heart be the shadow where I hide, the ransom for my life. Oh, he is my song. You are good. You are good, good, oh, you are good, good, oh, you are good, good, oh. Let the King of my heart be the wind inside my sails, the anchor in the waves. Oh, he is my song. Let the King of my heart be the fire inside my veins, the echo of my days. Oh, he is my song. You are good, you're good. Oh,
You're never gonna let me down. 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 Every voice. You're never gonna let me down. 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 You are good, you're good. Oh,
My God is holding on. God is so good. God is so good. God is so good. He's so good to me. God is so good. God is so good. Yeah. God is so good. He's so good to me.
Every voice, God is so good.
God is so good.
My
God is so good. My God is so good. He's so good to me. You're good. You're good. Well, you are good. You're good. Well, you are good. You're good. Well, you are good. You're good. 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 Yes, you are good. You're good.
Oh, you're so good to me. All praise to the Lord Most High, and all praise to the one who saved my life. All praise to Jesus Christ, High King of heaven, my King forever. All praise to the Lord Most High, and all praise to the one who saved my life. All praise to Jesus Christ, High King of heaven, my King forever. For he's my King forever. Sing all praise. And all praise to the Lord Most High, and all praise to the one who saved my life. All praise to Jesus Christ, High King of heaven, my King forever. You gave your life for mine, nailed to the cross, you crucified all my sin and shame. It was washed by your mercy. You are the treasure I find, my reason for living. So let my life become an offering to the one who is worthy. All praise. And all praise to the Lord Most High. And all praise to the one who saved my life. All praise to Jesus Christ, our King of heaven, my King forever. Yeah, you stormed the gates of my heart. The veil in between us was torn apart. Now you hold the keys to the grave, 'cause you bring things to life. You roll stones away. All praise to the Lord Most High, and all praise to the one who saved my life. All praise to Jesus Christ, our King of heaven, my King forever. And all praise to the Lord Most High, and all praise to the one who saved my life. All praise to Jesus Christ, our King of heaven, my King forever. Oh, he's my King forever. Oh, I will lift your name. So I lift my hands up, lay my whole life down, my whole life down before you. And I lift my hands up, lay my whole life down, my whole life now is for you. And I lift my hands up, lay my whole life down, my whole life down before you. And I lift my hands up, lay my whole life down, my whole life now is for you. And I lift my hands up, lay my whole life down, my whole life down before you. And I lift my hands up, lay my whole life down, my whole life now is for you. I lift my hands. And I lift my hands up, lay my whole life down, my whole life down before you. And I lift my hands up, lay my whole life down, my whole life now is for you. All praise to the Lord Most High, and all praise to the one who saved my life. All praise to Jesus Christ, our King of heaven, my King forever. And all praise to the Lord Most High, and all praise to the one who saved my life. All praise to Jesus Christ, our King of heaven, my King forever. And I lift my hands up, lay my whole life down, my whole life down before you. And I lift my hands up, lay my whole life down, my whole life now is for you. And I lift my hands up, lay my whole life down, my whole life now before you. And I lift my hands up, lay my whole life down, my whole life now is for you. And all praise to the Lord Most High, and all praise to the one who saved my life. All praise to Jesus Christ, my King of heaven, my King forever. God most high, God above, God of grace and God of love, rich in mercy, faithfulness, the God who keeps his promises. God most high, God most high, and God above, God of grace and God of love, rich in mercy, faithfulness, the God who keeps his promises. You are everlasting, the uncreated God, and all the universe erupts in awe. For there is none beside you, and only you are Lord, and all of heaven bows before your throne. Singing God most high, and God above, and God of grace and God of love, rich in mercy and faithfulness, is the God who keeps his promises. You have been my portion, and you will be my song, and all my confidence is in the bright and shining one. Oh, and you will stand victorious, and you will stand alone, and you are sure to bring your people. Singing God most high, and God above, and God of grace and God of love, rich in mercy, faithfulness. You're the God who keeps his promises. God most high, sing God most high, and God above, and God of grace and God of love, rich in mercy, faithfulness. You're the God who keeps his promises. And though every knee will bow and every tongue confess that you alone are God above the nations, the covenantal counterfeits will fail me every time. May the God of Jacob be the God of mine. Come on, every voice, sing this out. Every knee will bow, and every knee will bow, and every tongue confess that you alone are God above the nations. The covenantal counterfeits will fail me every time. May the God of Jacob be the God of mine. May the God of Jacob be the God of mine. Every voice, God And every knee will bow, and every tongue confess that you alone are God above the nations. The covenantal counterfeits will fail me every time. May the God of Jacob be the God of mine. Oh, you are the God of mine. Amen. You can be seated. Thanks for worshiping today.
What's up, First Free family? If you don't know me, allow me to introduce myself. I am Fur Lois, your friendly neighborhood connections pastor, which means I'm here to help you find your place. Let's take a look at a few things coming up. Did you know that we have a care center on Thursday nights? The care center at First Free exists as a safe place where one-on-one personal caring happens for any individual or relational challenges you may be facing. Our team of trained mental health coaches, led by Care Pastor Steve Dawson, are ready to come alongside you as you face your struggles head on. You do not have to do this alone. The Care Center is open Thursdays by appointment from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. To schedule an appointment, visit firstfree.org/care today. Are the gifts of the Holy Spirit really for today or not? This question has sparked interest, conversation, and debate for years. Join us for Growing in the Gifts, a part of the Empowered Workshop series featuring guest speaker Tom Flaherty. Come and learn as he not only tackles this question, but also how we as believers can develop a greater value for God's presence and the ministry of the Holy Spirit. This is a free event with no registration required. For more information, visit firstfree.org/events. Finally, just a reminder that Saturday, May 18th will be the last Saturday night service for the summer. If you're a Saturday nighter watching this, I just want to personally invite you to join us on Sunday mornings this summer. I'd love to see you there. As always, if it doesn't work in your schedule, you can join us online on our YouTube channel or by visiting firstfree.org/live. Saturday night service will resume August 17th. If you're new here today, hello and welcome. I'm super stoked you're joining us here at First Free. There's a round desk out in the middle of the gym area called First Free Central. And I want to personally invite you to stop by on your way out for an awesome free gift and to ask any questions you may have about who First Free is and what we do here. If you're online and new, we want to connect with you too. Just text the word welcome to the number on your screen, and we look forward to hearing from you either way. Many of you know that we have had ministry partners in the country of Laos for many years. As a church, we've sent many teams and resources as the Lord has presented us with opportunities. I am so excited to tell you about a new partnership that God has forged in Laos between First Free Church and Global Fingerprints, the child sponsorship program of the Evangelical Free Church of America. Coming up on the weekend of May 18th and 19th, we get to come together to sponsor 100 kids in Central Laos, ensuring each of these precious and vulnerable kiddos get the nutrition they need, receive an education and vocational training, and encounter Jesus in and through the local church. Take a look at this video on Global Fingerprints.
Global Fingerprints is the child sponsorship ministry of the Evangelical Free Church of America. In locations where poverty, corruption, conflict, and other social challenges impact communities and limit access to the gospel, Global Fingerprints and international partners work together to meet the physical, emotional, and spiritual needs of vulnerable children. But sponsorship through Global Fingerprints does more than simply meet the needs of children. Sponsorship builds the church. Global Fingerprints lives out the EFCA's mission to glorify God by multiplying transformational churches among all people. In partnership with international ministry leaders in communities where children need support, Global Fingerprints helps revitalize, strengthen, and plant gospel-centered churches, providing pathways to share the good news of Jesus and provide holistic care for the vulnerable. From discipleship and education to regular wellness checks and more, children receive support that deepens their understanding of God's love and connects them to a local church. All of this happens because faithful and generous people give monthly to sponsor children. Global Fingerprints offers a meaningful way for individuals, families, small groups, and churches to make a tangible difference in the lives of children, local churches, and their communities. Transform lives and build the church by sponsoring children through Global Fingerprints.
He was panting, exhausted. The sky was finally dark, and he gave himself a moment to stop. He'd been running. He'd been running for what felt like days. He was tired, he was exhausted, and he was sore. The last thing he remembers his family saying is, if we ever catch him, we will kill him. And so he's been running. He's running for his life, and yet he's also, in a weird way, running from his life. And he can't help but stop and think in that moment, how did it come to this? The way he's lived his life, the way he's done things has all led up to this moment. And he's on the run. As he takes a moment to pause, he doesn't run into a church or a worship center. He doesn't run onto a stage or a temple or a tabernacle or a synagogue. He just stops in the middle of an open countryside. And he thinks about the stories he's heard from his childhood. Stories that he heard about his grandfather, who encountered this God, this one God, and how this one God spoke to his grandfather with these incredible messages and promises and covenants. He spoke destiny over his grandfather's family, but he had never experienced anything like that. He thought about the stories of his father, who also heard of this promise and this covenant, who encountered these miraculous intervention scenarios as he was growing up, and yet he himself had never encountered anything like that. He was starting not to believe anymore that there was a promise that was meant for him. He wasn't believing anymore that there was a covenant that he was a part of. He was starting to believe that the only way he could make his way in life was to lie, cheat, steal, and fight his way to the top. And now that's caught up to him. And so in this moment of peace, he finally takes a rock and he puts it on the ground and he lays on it like a pillow. He's able to fall asleep. And as he sleeps, he dreams. And he sees this ladder, this staircase that's starting right in the ground in front of him and going way beyond the sky where he could see. And all along the staircase are these things he's never seen before, these beings. They are bright, they have wings, they almost float up and down. He's never seen anything like this in his entire life. And he is so in awe and immersed with the idea of these glowing things going up and down the staircase that he almost misses the thing at the very top. It was like in that moment, his life was coming to a point. All the stories he had heard, the one that his grandfather knew, but he didn't, the one that his father knew, but he didn't, was standing right in front of him. And then it speaks. And it says, I know you. And I've always known you. And I have a plan for you and a promise for you. And if you run, I will follow you. And if you fight me, I will be with you. And if you don't care about me, I will care about you. And regardless of what you choose to do, I will make good on my promise to you, and I will never leave you until I've accomplished everything I promised to do. This is less about you and more about me. He opens his eyes. He looks around him, and it's still dark. The stars are still shining, but there's definitely no staircase. And he says the only thing that he can think to say. Good morning, First Free. That's not what he said. How are we doing? Hello to all of you here in our worship center. Hello to everyone over in our gym. Hello to everyone tuning in online. My name is Jon Reiner. I'm one of the pastors here at First Free, and I have the honor of being our teaching pastor this weekend. This is going to be a little bit of a different week. If you've been with us, we've been going through a series for the last several months in 1 Thessalonians. That's what we do here at First Free. If you're a first-time guest, we just go through books of the Bible, verse by verse, chapter by chapter. Sometimes it takes us like at minimum 6 months and sometimes longer. But we go through books of the Bible, except we just finished 1 Thessalonians. Next week is Mother's Day for anyone who needs a reminder. And then after that, we'll be starting a summer series. And so this week kind of just falls in the middle. Doesn't really have a heading. It doesn't really have a grid for it. And so Pastor Shane simply said, why don't you just speak on something that's on your heart? Which can be almost more terrifying than just going through a book of the Bible. It's also different in a way this weekend because, a little insider information, if you get our newsletter, you saw this, but built into kind of the system around here, they're very kind to the pastors at this church. And so after every 5 years of being on staff, they basically tell you to leave for 10 weeks and take a sabbatical. And so this is my 10th year. And so in a couple weeks, stop. So in a couple weeks, I'll be packing up, locking my office door, and I'll be gone all summer. And so this is probably the last time I'll be speaking with you for quite a while. And so I know. Yes, right. I paid them. So you can get me afterwards. And so we don't really have a series, and this is the last time you can speak for a while. So what's on your heart? And that sent me through a process of thinking. If I had one more message to give, what would it be? I started thinking as I've grown up in the church. I know many of you have probably grown up in the church, or you know that I grew up in the church. And so I was that kid at kids' church. I was the kid at like the Awana programs. That was me, right? And so when I was younger, the kind of the message of my heart, the motivation of my heart was like to learn and memorize. I wanted to learn and memorize the stories, learn and memorize the verses, right? Because every time you memorize, you got like a jewel or a button or a candy, you know? And so it's like you memorize all these verses as much as you possibly can, which I'm very thankful for because it lays this foundation. But that was kind of the season of where I was with the Lord as a kid was I want to learn all the stories. And then as I got older, I started, my first job in ministry was international missions and evangelism. And so I flew around the world doing evangelism and international missions. And so like the pull of your heart, the message of your heart is, man, to know God and to make him known, and you take advantage of every opportunity to share the gospel. And I'm preaching in open air things and teaching in open air atmospheres, and I'm going to prisons and jails, and you're sharing the gospel. And like that's the driving message of your heart. There was a season of time when I was in a ministry that was all about worship and prayer and end times and preparing the church to stand for, and that was kind of the message of my heart, was lifting up worship and prayer 24 hours a day. That was the emphasis of my heart. And you go to Bible college and seminary, my gosh, the message is like, be right. Like know all the answers. Like that was kind of, I wanted to know everything. I want to get all my ducks in a row. I want to know the answer to every single question. That was the burning thing in my heart. But now it's kind of like, okay, you're 39 years old. What's the burning message of your heart? You have one thing to give. Somehow today, this is what I want to communicate. That God is here. Not just like here in First Free. God does beautiful things in this building, and God does beautiful things in church buildings, but God is here in the sense of God is really with you. He's with you. And he hasn't forgotten about you. In the midst of your circumstances and your situations that you go through that are really good and some are really difficult and some are really confusing and some are the tension in between, God's with you. He hasn't left. Or if you're in a season of life where you just feel like everything within you is running away from the Lord. I want nothing to do with God. I want to do everything in opposition to God. He hasn't left you. Or if you think I've made so many mistakes, done so many things, I'm still working with so much pain and insecurities from my past, and why aren't I healed yet, and why haven't I gotten over this yet? He's still with you. And the promises and the good plans that he has for your life, he is still going to fulfill. Regardless at times of where we think we are in our life, he is still with you. And he's with you in your mundane. He's with you in your 9 to 5, your 8 to 4, your 12-hour shifts, your 24-hour shifts. He's with you as you are waking up, stumbling over piles of laundry to make breakfast and pack lunches and do drop-offs and pickups and all the other soccer. He is with you in the midst of the mundane and the busy, the spiritual and the plain. God is with you if we would take the time to see him. That God is here, whether we realize it or not. And so that's the message I want you to leave with today. And that's the last message I want to give before I go for the summer. And so to do that, we're going to look at the story of an individual in the ancient book of Genesis named Jacob. And we're going to watch his life as he goes through highs and lows, as he tricks his way to the top, as he wrestles with this promise that his family has heard for decades, and yet how he is trying to find the God that he's always heard about but never experienced. And see if there's something in there for all of us. So I'll read one verse, and then we'll dive in. This is Genesis chapter 28, verse 16. It says this: when Jacob awoke from his sleep, he thought, surely the Lord is in this place, and I was not aware of it. Or John's translation, God was here, and I didn't even know it. Let's pray. God, I thank you for who you are. I thank you for your mercy, your grace, your love, and your truth. I thank you for your goodness, God, and I thank you that you are here. And we acknowledge that. And I thank you that you're here. And I thank you that you are in our lives and you have never left us or forsaken us. You've never turned your back on us. That even in the tense places of life, so the times of running away, the times of the mundane, and the times of super spiritual, you are here. And I ask that we would create, that you would cultivate in us the ability to see the right now, everyday holy moments of God in our lives. That life is beautiful. And I pray that we would walk out of here realizing that even if we leave this building, you are still with us. In your name, amen. To understand Jacob, we have to understand this idea of covenant. Now, I understand that for some of us, this is going to be old news, and that's okay. It's good to have refreshers every once in a while. In the book of Genesis, there was a man by the name of Abram or Abraham. God made a promise to him, a covenant. Covenant is like a promise, but it's also like a contract. It's a very binding thing, especially in the biblical context. God calls out this man, Abraham, to leave everything he's ever known. To leave his city, to leave his community, to leave probably the generational home that he's had for years and years and years, to a place that God would show him, just period, that's it. No GPS coordinates, no address to put into Apple Maps, none of that. It was just, I want you to leave everything and come with me. And if you do, here's what I will give you. Here is what I promise to do for you if you promise to follow me. And this is what he promises Abraham in Genesis chapter 17. He says this: as for me, this is my covenant with you. You will be the father of many nations. No longer will you be called Abram, for your name will be Abraham. For I have made you a father of many nations, and I will make you very fruitful. I will make nations of you, and kings will come from you. And I will establish my covenant as an everlasting covenant. It will never end between me and you and your descendants after you for the generations to come, that I will be your God and the God of your descendants after you. The whole land of Canaan, where you now reside as a foreigner, I will give you as an everlasting possession to you and your descendants after you, and I will be their God. This is the promise, the covenant that God makes with Abraham. He says, I will make your descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky and the sand on the sea. You will be a great nation. Understand, Abraham didn't have any kids at this point. I'm going to make you a giant nation. And I'm going to make you a blessing to all nations of the earth. You will bless all nations of the earth. And anyone who blesses you, I will bless. And anyone who curses you, I will curse. And third, he says, I'm going to give you a land. I'll give you this land. The land that you reside in as a foreigner, I will give to you as your own. I will give you an offspring, I will give you a blessing, and I will give you land. if you follow and come with me. To a land unknown, destination unknown, trials and tribulations unknown. But if you follow me, this is my promise, not just to you, but for future generations to come. And so Abraham goes. He says yes. He leaves everything. He takes his wife, he takes the possessions that he has, and he just goes. With this idea that some promise is coming, some covenant is coming that's bigger than him. It's for his generations to come, even though he didn't even have generations at that time. If you fast forward through the book of Genesis, Abraham gives birth to he doesn't, his wife does, gives birth to a son named Isaac. He has a son named Isaac. And if you read into that story, it's this like, oh, finally, like they waited decades to have one child, let alone enough children to cover the sky with stars and the beach with sea sands. That came out awkward. He didn't even have a kid, and now he had one kid, and how important is that one kid? And then God says, okay, I want you to sacrifice that one kid. Like, that's a terrible trick, God. Yeah, I want you to give it up. And there's this turmoil, this tension, this testing of Abraham, and he's willing to do it, and God stops him. And so this covenantal promise is seen to pass from Abraham to Isaac. Isaac and his wife have the same initial problem. It's infertility. They can't get pregnant. This promise that is supposed to be so fulfilling and so very apparent seems to be starting very slowly. And yet, Abraham has these incredible encounters with God. He hears from God. He speaks with God. Isaac has these incredible encounters with God. He hears from God. He sees the intervention of God. And then Isaac has 2 sons, and that's where we're going to pick it up in Genesis chapter 17. There is a promise at stake that God has made. And I wonder if at times we think, yeah, God, we hear that God wants to do good and beautiful things in our lives, but when I look at my life and the way that I live or the decisions I make, I feel like I cannot take part in the promises of God. I have gone too far. I've done too much. I've ran too far away. God doesn't see me. I'm insignificant. I just live a mundane life. There's no way God is going to fulfill promises in my life. Probably someone else. Maybe someone who's got it more together, someone who speaks on a stage, someone who's more qualified, someone else who fill in the blank. That person will probably be used by God. I'm not sure God's going to fulfill his promises to me. We'll see if that's true. Genesis 17. No, skip to Genesis 25. This is the account of the family line of Abraham's son, Isaac. Abraham became the father of Isaac, and Isaac was 40 years old when he married Rebekah, daughter of Bethuel, the Aramean from Padan Aram, sister of Laban the Aramean. And Isaac prayed to the Lord on behalf of his wife because she was childless. The pain of this believing that is God really going to come through because it doesn't seem like my circumstances line up to the promise. Anyone ever felt that? I feel like God said good things are going to happen in my life, but my current circumstances don't really line up to that. I thought I was going to be used in ministry more. I thought my business was going to be this far along. I thought this was going to happen in my life. I thought my marriage was going to be like this. I thought our family was going to be like that. I thought that we were going to be this far along by this point. My circumstances don't really seem to line up with the promise that I thought God made to us. And so he's 40 years old and he's begging God for a child. The Lord answered his prayer and his wife Rebekah became pregnant. I love how the Bible describes things. The babies jostled each other within her. Can I ask, has anyone here had twins, like birthed twins or triplets or quintuplets or sextuplets or whatever it was? Did you feel babies jostling inside of you? You did, okay, all right. I guess it's normal, I don't know, it's a biblical thing. The babies jostled each other within her, and it seems like it was so confusing and so frustrating for her, right? Because she probably didn't go in and get an ultrasound. She probably didn't go in and be like, oh. She's trying to figure out what's going on with this one baby. What's happening in here, right? And so she prays to God. This is the prayer of her heart. God, why is this happening to me? Why is this happening? And so she went to inquire of the Lord. And the Lord responds. Oh, the Lord responds to our most ridiculous prayers sometimes, doesn't he? The Lord responds. Here's how he responds. There are 2 nations inside your womb. Excuse me? Come again? I just want to know, I just thought maybe it was indigestion. 2 nations are in your womb and 2 peoples from within you will be separated. One people will be stronger than the other, and the older will serve the younger. This was Rebecca's ultrasound appointment. The Lord says, oh yeah, no, there's not just one baby in there, there's two. And actually they are symbolically fighting right now because they will be fighting for thousands and thousands of years. Thanks for that. Thank you. There are two nations inside of you that are battling, two things that are going at each other. One will be stronger than the other, and yet the older will serve the younger. You fast forward to Genesis chapter 25. When the time came for her to give birth, there was a twin boys in her womb. The first to come out was red, and his whole body was like a hairy garment. Disgusting. No offense to all the hairy people here. That gross. First one was red, came out, whole body like a hairy garment, so they named him Esau, which basically means like red and hairy. I love how we name things, right? It's like, now we name things like these creative, like eclectic names, you know? They're like, that thing is red and hairy. We're gonna name it Red and Hairy. This is my son, Red and Hairy. Nice to, yeah. Your son looks like a freak. He's named Red and Hairy. Like, yeah, okay. So he came out. So they called him Esau. After this, his brother came out with his hand grasping Esau's heel. Someone said, wow, that's more than wow. That's disgusting. I have 3 daughters. I watched them be born. Yes, I did. Okay? I did it. Never at any point when my daughter came out, was there a hand that came afterwards like this. That's just, whoa. Like a baby came out, like, oh, it's red and it's hairy. What is that? Like there's a hand coming out, like, get back in here. I'm coming out first. It says that he came and his hand was grasping Esau's heel. Like he was still fighting. He was still competing. Like he wanted to come out first. He wanted to control the situation. He's pulling Esau back in. And so they named him Jacob. Jacob doesn't mean red and hairy. Jacob means grasping of the heel, which is a Hebrew idiom for deceiver. He was named at birth. Like one kid, like you might think your name Red and Hairy, like, okay, that's unfortunate, right? But your brother's name Deceiver. Ouch. But these are these two brothers that have been battling, jostling inside of the womb, Red and Hairy and the Deceiver. And so he is named one who grasped the heel. From his birth, he was identified as the one that is trying to pull his way, grasp his way, trick his way, deceive his way into being first, to being better, to being great. His name means the deceiver. And we're only going to look at a portion of Jacob's life, but I encourage you to look through the entire book of Genesis because you'll see over and over and over again examples of this man wrestling with God, at one point literally. Deceiving others, tricking his way to get an advancement. All the while, God is still working behind the scenes. God is still accomplishing something. And some of us need to hear that because we think maybe we've made this decision or that decision. I've gone too far. I've run away. I look at my life. I don't think it's really usable by God. I think maybe someone else would be better suited to do something by God. I look at my life and all the mistakes that I make and all the drama that I create and all the bridges that I've burned. And I think to myself, oh, I know I'm just ripping myself away from whatever promise God had for me. But all the while, God is still working behind the scenes, doing something beautiful. If we would only take the time to see it. And so the story goes on in Genesis 25. The boys grew up. Here's one example of what happens amongst these two. The boys grew up and Esau became a skillful hunter. Of course he did. His name is Red and Hairy. What else? What do you think your future is? He became a skillful hunter, a man of the open country, while Jacob was content to stay at home among the tents. Isaac, the father, who had a taste for wild game, loved Esau. But his mother loved Jacob. So not only inside Rebecca did you have these two people fighting, divided, jostling, but now it's even created in this like chasm within a family. Like the dad really likes the firstborn and the mom really likes Jacob. And there's this divide, this tension that's already happening in the world that Jacob finds himself in. All the while, this family is kind of surrounded by this covenant, this promise that God is going to do incredible things. Anyone here ever felt like your family's dysfunctional? Maybe you don't want to raise your hand because they're sitting next to you. Okay, yeah. Yeah. And yet God can still do beautiful things through a dysfunctional family. Oh, that was unplanned. God can do beautiful things through dysfunctional family. Okay, let's dive in. Write that down if you need to. Okay, here we go. Verse 29. Once when Jacob was cooking some stew, he's just at home hanging around the tents because that's what he does. Hangs around the tents. He likes it. He likes cooking, baking, right? So that's what he's doing. Cooking some stew, right? Esau comes in from the open country, famished. Of course he does. What a man. What a man. Comes in all red and hairy. Comes in from the open country, smelling like the woods, like pine and blood and entrails. And so he comes in and he says to Jacob, quick, let me have some of that red stew because it looks like me. I love red food, right? Give me some of that red stew. I'm famished. That's why he was also called Edom, red. What's this guy with red? I don't know. So he says, give me some of that red stew. I'm hungry. I'm famished. I've been out here hunting. Well, you've been out here cleaning the tents. You know? And Jacob replied, sell me your birthright. Whew. This is a twist. If you don't know, we're going to get into the birthright in a second. This is a twist. This is like Thor and Loki relationship right now, right? You got this big tough, and then like this deceiver, this tricker who's like, okay, you might be stronger and bigger and everyone thinks that you're better, but I'm going to trick you into getting what I want. Because I know that there's a promise around our family and I'm going to get it. I'm going to get it. I know I'm going to get it. And so he says, okay, I'll give you some of this stew if you give me the birthright. Esau's response, look, I'm about to die, Esau said. I'd like to know how long he was really out in the woods for, because I'm like, once I run out of beef jerky and my Little Debbie Christmas cakes, I'm thinking I'm going to die. I'm not really. I'm just going to fall asleep. Look, I'm about to die, Esau said. What good is the birthright to me? Jacob said, swear it to me. Swear it to me. I'll give you this temporary thing that you want if you give me the thing that will change my life forever. You give it to me, and I'll give you some stew. I'll give you the whole pot of stew. So Esau does it. He swears an oath to him, selling his birthright to Jacob for a bowl of stew. Then Jacob gave Esau some bread and some lentil stew. He ate and drank, he got up and he left, and Esau despised the birthright. Two nations are battling inside of you. A promise made to Abraham, which was then given to Isaac. It covers over this entire family. But now there's two. Which one's going to get it? Which one's going to carry on this promise? Which one's going to carry on this covenant? Which one is going to have these incredible encounters with God like the grandfather and the father did? The first one that comes out is by all intents and purposes, as far as their culture is concerned, the leader. Not only did he come out first, but he's the strong one. He's the hunter. He's the hairy one, which apparently means leadership. Unfortunate for some of us. All of this was lined up for Esau. But Jacob wasn't going to have it. His name was Deceiver. He's been grasping heels since before he was born. He's going to fight and claw his way into significance. He's going to fight and claw his way to be on top, to be the center, to be powerful. He's going to fight and claw his way, and when given the opportunity, he jumps on it to get the birthright. What is the birthright? In the ancient Jewish culture, the birthright was almost this very important significance of who would pass on as the head of the household. Who would be the leader? Who would take on the vast majority of the father's estate? Who would take care of the other siblings, the mother? Who would take care of everything? Who would be the power of attorney for everything that happens in that family's estate for generations to come? And in this case, it would also, in a sense, be who's going to carry on this blessing made to their grandfather. Who's the one? This birthright was important. It was prestigious. It was, if you were the firstborn, you almost were groomed at that point to be the leader of the family. Maybe some of you have experienced this in your own lives. If you're the firstborn, if you have a firstborn kid, you almost just rely on them to take control. You rely on them to take charge. You rely on them to be a leader. Or maybe you were the firstborn and that expectation was always on you. You're going to be the one in charge. And because you've lived the longest, you've had the most experience. When you look at your siblings, it's almost like, yeah, you're not going to tell me what to do. I'm the oldest one here, right? I have seniority in this home. I have dealt with things you've never even dreamed of, right? That's how I was the last. I was the baby. So there's always that expectation of like, you always got it easy. You have no idea what we went through. sorry. I like my life, you know? But the oldest has that responsibility ingrained in them by nature of position. And so Esau has been living his life waiting for that moment. And Jacob steals it. I'm going to be the one. And you're going to serve me. I'm going to get the blessing. I'm going to be in charge. This is going to be about me. You want some soup? Great. Give me your birthright. When Isaac was old and his eyes were so weak that he could no longer see, he called for Esau, his older son, and he said to him, "My son." "Here I am," he answered. Isaac said, "I am now an old man, and I don't know the day of my death. Now then, get your equipment, your quiver and the bow, and go out to the open country to hunt some wild game for me. Prepare for me the kind of tasty food that I like and bring it to me to eat so that I may give you my blessing before I die." Now the last verse, that's in Genesis chapter 27. The last verse of Genesis chapter 26 says Esau was 40 years old. I don't know why, but even growing up hearing these stories, I always just figured they were still teenagers for some reason. If Esau's 40 years old, they're both living at home. Sorry, I think it was a cultural thing. They're both living at home, right? Esau, I think, is actually, he's gotten married at this point. They're still fighting with each other. This is still unraveling. This is still unfolding. Jacob may have tricked him into the birthright years and years ago, but he hasn't forgotten about it. And now Isaac is nearing his death and he wants one last great venison meal. That's what he wants. Go out into the country, find the biggest buck you can and bring it back here and cook it up for me. You know how I like those tasty foods, it says. And so Esau goes to make it. This is a part where he is going to bless his firstborn. Not just the birthright, but a blessing. He's going to pass the mantle down to the firstborn. He's going to pass the mantle down to Esau and say, "My days are numbered. I'm about to die. This promise that God is fulfilling in our family has to go on, and it's going to be through you. And so I need you to go, prepare me one last meal so that I can bless you." And then he'll bless Esau, and then the firstborn will have his rightful place, and this generational promise will continue on, except this happens. Now, Rebekah was listening as Isaac spoke to his son Esau. You see, all the mistakes that Jacob makes in his life is not just his own doing. Some of it was dysfunctional family. And that impacts him. He makes his own garbage decisions, but other people make garbage decisions for him as well. And this is one of those instances. When Rebekah was listening as Isaac spoke to his son Esau, and when Esau left for the open country to hunt, she's standing there, she watched him as he gets his bow, he gets his camo on, he got his quiver, he's got his pack of snacks so he doesn't get hungry for stew anymore because that really went bad last time. And so he's going out, he's got his harness on so he can climb his tree, right? And he's walking out in the woods and Rebekah's watching. As soon as he gets far enough, she goes to Jacob and she says to Jacob, "Look, I overheard your father say to your brother Esau, bring me some game and prepare me some tasty food to eat so I may give you my blessing in the presence of the Lord before I die. So now, my son, listen carefully to what I tell you to do. Go out to the flock and bring me 2 choice goats so that I can prepare some tasty food for your father just the way that he likes it. Take it to your father to eat so that he may give you his blessing before he dies." Oh, talk about dysfunction. Talk about dysfunction. Jacob makes a lot of decisions. Rebekah's making this one. And Jacob will go along with it. All the while Esau, red and hairy, is just out hunting, right? And so Rebekah goes to Jacob, who she loved more, it says, and says, "I want you to go get," he's going out to find a deer. I don't know how long that's going to take. "I want you to just go into the pen and find a couple good goats. Bring them back. It'll be faster. Go find some goats, bring back. I will cook them just the way that your father likes it, and then he'll bless you rather than blessing Esau." And you might think, what's the big deal? It's a blessing. The blessing. We do it all the time. We give blessings all the time. We can bless things. We bless people when they sneeze. So what is the big deal? In this culture, it was a very big deal. This was establishing someone's identity. This was establishing their future. This was establishing their place in the family and their covenant with God. And up until this point, Abraham had experienced that, Isaac had experienced it, but Jacob and Esau hadn't. Jacob is in this place where he's been fighting and deceiving his way to get on top. Esau has been ripped off once already because of his birthright, and now he's going to lose out on his blessing. And so Rebekah puts this plan into motion. But Jacob says to Rebekah, his mother, but my brother Esau is a hairy guy, and I'm kind of smooth, right? What if my father touches me? I would appear to be tricking him, which is his name. I would be appear to tricking him, which would bring down a curse on myself rather than a blessing. It seems like Jacob's almost putting the brakes on. Like, no, this doesn't seem right. Like, I already got the birthright. Do I really go for the full thing and get the blessing too? Like, I'm going to get found out. I don't know if I want to trick Dad in this. He's gonna curse me. He's going to throw this whole thing off. And Rebekah's like, no, we're going to do it. Dysfunctional. God's still working in the background. His mother said to him, my son, let the curse fall on me. I'll be cursed for your sake. I'll take the curse instead. Just do what I say. Go and get them for me. And so he went and he got them and he brought them to his mother, and she prepared some tasty food. The number of times that the biblical author writes tasty food is ridiculous, just the way his father liked it. And then Rebekah took the best clothes of Esau, her older son, which she had in the house, and put them on her younger son Jacob. Now Rebekah's going in the closet, right? And she's taking out, like, probably, I'm guessing, even though they're twins, I don't know why, I just imagine Esau's bigger. I'm sorry, I do, right? And so I'm just imagining she takes out this like oversized shirt that smells like blood and pine cones and leaves and entrails, and it's covered in blood, and she takes it off and she puts it on Jacob, right? And he's got this disgusting oversized shirt. He doesn't like it. He's more of like a designer guy with, staying around the tent. Like, that's him. He's not, I don't really want to be covered in blood. I'd rather smell like chocolate chip cookies. But so she's covered in this like oversized clothes, right? And then she covers his hands and smooth part of his neck with goat skin. How absolutely ridiculous is this? So she kills these goats, and somehow she has time to kill the goat, dry the skin. I don't know how maybe she had some goat skin just, on the side somewhere, and she wraps it around. So he's got this big oversized shirt on with blood, smells like the outdoors. He's covered in animal fur, and he's holding this bowl of soup. Why? So that their plan can work. So they can be on top. So they can deceive their father. So they can get the blessing. So she handed to her son the tasty food and the bread that she had made, and here he goes in. I can't imagine what he's feeling. If it was me, I'd be like, this is not going to work. This is not going to work. This is not going to work. I'm covered in animal hair. I smell disgusting. He walks in, he says, my father? Yes, my son, Isaac answers. Who is it? See, up until this point, he's dragged his heels. This has been Rebekah's plan. Now it becomes Jacob's plan too. And so he walks in, he says, I'm Esau, your firstborn. I've done as you told me. So please sit up, eat some of my game so that you give me your blessing. Let's seal the deal. Let's get this over with. I'm ready to take the lead. I'm ready to be in charge of the family. I'm ready to have Esau serve me. I'm ready. Let's do this. Let's go. Isaac asks a great question. How did you find it so quickly, my son? How many of y'all go hunting? Right? Any hunters in the room? Yeah. Isaac's asking the obvious question. Hold on a second, Esau. You just left. You just left, and you're telling me you already found an animal, killed it, gutted it, skinned it, butchered it, and cooked me a meal? How did that happen so fast? Jacob's response, the Lord your God gave me success. They were in the pen. And Isaac says to Jacob, come near so I can touch you. Oh, no. No, I'm going to get caught. I'm going to blow this whole thing up. I'm going to ruin everything. To know whether you really are my son Esau or not. And so Jacob went close to his father Isaac, who touched him and said, "The voice is the voice of Jacob, but the hands are the hands of Esau." He did not recognize him, right? For all of his hands were hairy like his older brother. So he proceeded to bless him. "Are you really my son Esau?" he asked. Again, Jacob lies. "I am," he replied. So he said, "Then my son, bring me some of your game to eat so I may give you my blessing." And so Jacob brings it really, really close. He brought him some wine and some drink, and then the father said to him, "Come here, my son, and kiss me." And so he went and he kissed him. And when Isaac caught the smell of his clothes, he blessed him, truly believing now that this was Esau. With all intents and purposes, Isaac is blessing Esau. He's handing over the mantle of the firstborn. He's preceding the promises of God. Jacob is trying to screw the whole thing up with his mom, Rebekah. And so he brings him in. He can smell it. "Oh, the smell of my son is like the smell of field that the Lord has blessed. Here is his blessing. May God give you heaven's dew and earth's richness, an abundance of grain and new wine. And may nations serve you and peoples bow down to you." Who's he talking to? "Be Lord over your brothers, and may the sons of your mother bow down to you. May those who curse you be cursed, and those who bless you be blessed." This is a real thing for them. What he is saying, it's almost like it's written in stone. This is the continuation of the contract, right? The covenant that was made, they're adding their signature to it. And it's not Esau, it is Jacob. "Your household will serve you. Your brothers will bow down to you. You will lord over them. All of your other siblings will listen to you. You will be the Lord of the house." And after Isaac finished blessing him, and Jacob had scarcely left his father's presence, his brother Esau came in from hunting. The drama. The tension of this story, right? Esau's like, "This is the day. I'm going to go find the best animal I can." Maybe he's passing on some small one. Like, he's going to find the best one. He's going to hunt it. He's going to kill it. He's going to prepare it just right. He's so proud of himself, and now he's bringing it in. He has no idea that there's nothing left for him. He's coming in and he brings it to his dad. He's so happy, right? And so he comes in from hunting. He too prepared some tasty food. He brought it into his father. And he said to him, "My father, please sit up and eat some of my game so that you may give me your blessing. I've been waiting for this day." I know that whole thing with the stew happened years ago. I don't think anyone remembers that. That was just a blip in the story, right? Here's the blessing. Here we go. His father Isaac asked him, "Who are you?" "I'm your son." Not only does he say that, but he says, "I'm your son. I'm your firstborn son, Esau. That's why I'm here. I'm the one that you sent out. I'm your favorite. I'm the one that's supposed to get the blessing. I'm the one that this promise is supposed to go through. It's me." Isaac trembled violently and said, "Who was it then that hunted game and brought it to me? I ate it just before you came. I blessed him, and indeed he will be blessed." The dysfunction, the tension, the fighting. And yet in the background, we as the readers are meant to continue to ask ourselves, is God still at work here? Is God still doing something? Is God still going to fulfill his promise? Is something good still going to come out of this? We look at the life of Jacob, and some of the decisions he makes out of his own ill intent. He lies, he steals, he deceives, but he's also the product of dysfunction around him. He's the product of other people making decisions, and he lives with that, and he follows through with it. There is so much just yuck happening here. And yet the question we wrestle with, is God still in the midst of it? Is God still working? Is God still active? He took the blessing, he took the birthright, and he is angry. He says, "Who was it?" But they all knew who it was. When Esau heard his father's words, he burst out with a loud and bitter cry and said to his father, "Bless me too, my father. Do you have anything left for me, or did he take it all? As long as I've ever known my brother, he takes everything. He steals and he lies and he cheats and he makes everything about himself, and there's a whole line of collateral damage behind him. You're telling me God's going to work through him? Is there anything left for me?" But Isaac says, "Your brother came deceitfully and took your blessing." Does God still work through the worst of our situations? Does God still work through the worst of our scenarios? Your brother came and he deceitfully took your blessing. Esau said, isn't he named rightly? Oh, isn't he named rightly? From the very beginning, when I came out beautiful, red, and hairy, this hand came out. From the very beginning, he's been fighting and stealing and cheating and lying. And you're telling me God's going to bless him? God's going to do something good through him? God's going to do something beautiful through him? And there's nothing left for me. This is the second time he has taken advantage of me. He took my birthright and now he's taken my blessing. And he asks, haven't you reserved any blessing for me? I'm the firstborn and I'm getting nothing now. Isaac answered Esau, I said it. I thought it was you, but I said it. I made him lord over you. I've made all of his relatives his servants, including you. I've sustained him with grain and new wine, so what can I possibly do for you, my son? Esau said to his father, do you only have one blessing? Bless me too. And Esau wept aloud. His father Isaac answered him, your dwelling will be away from the earth's richness, away from the dew of the heavens above, and you will live by the sword and you will serve your brother. I said it. And if I said it, it's as good as written in stone. It's done. You're going to serve him. You'll dwell in a place away from earth's riches. But when you grow restless, you will throw this yoke off of yourself. You will throw his yoke off from yourself. You won't be enslaved to this thing anymore. There will come a day when you're not enslaved to it. You will throw it off. When you become too restless, you will throw it off. And this won't be a weight on you anymore. That's the best I can do as a blessing. Esau held a grudge against Jacob because of the blessing his father had given him. And he said to himself, the days of mourning for my father are near, and then I will kill my brother Jacob. Oh my gosh, like you would think this family, like the covenant family would be a little bit more put together than this. See, maybe it goes to serve that if we're always comparing ourselves to the Joneses down the street, the Joneses might not be okay. No offense if your name is Jones. This is the covenant family. This is the one that God selected out of all the nations of the earth. And there's this tension with us as the readers to ask ourselves, is God really still in this? Can God still do something beautiful out of this dysfunction? Can God really show up in this family? Can God still make good on his promises? Even though it seems like right and left people are doing what they can to mess it all up, can God still do something in this situation? And really, of all the people, God's going to work through Jacob to make something beautiful happen after everything that he's done? Is God still here with them? When Rebekah was told that what was told her about her older son Esau had said, she sent for her younger son Jacob and said to him, your brother Esau is planning to avenge himself in killing you. Now then, my son, do what I say. Flee at once to my brother Laban's in Haran. Stay with him for a while until your brother's fury subsides. And when your brother is no longer angry with you and forgets what you did to him, I'll send word to you to come back. Why should I lead both of you in one day? See, there's this birthright, which was kind of like the contract. It was who's going to be the head of the household, the power of attorney, the overseer, the majority of the state. That is the line of the birthright. A blessing, anyone can get a blessing. You can bless people. We bless people all the time. They can get blessings right and left. But this one was a significant blessing that went along with this birthright. And Jacob got both of them. And so the question we wrestle with is, can something beautiful still come out of this scenario? And I really felt going in this weekend that maybe some of us find ourselves in a similar identity as this Jacob. Can anything good really come out of my family? Can anything really good come out of the dysfunction? Can anything good really come out of what I have done with my own life? Can anything really good, would God still be with me in the midst of X, Y, and Z in my life? Jacob's now on the run. He's exhausted. He's in pain. He's sore. The last thing he heard was that if his family catches him, they will kill him. And he finally stops. Jacob left Beersheba and set out for Haran. And when he reached a certain place, he stopped for the night because the sun had set. And taking one of the stones there, he put it under his head and he laid down to sleep. And in that sleep, he had a dream. I would imagine he had heard the stories about Abraham, his grandfather. I would imagine he heard the stories of Isaac, his dad. He had heard about this promise that goes over their family, but he's also heard and seen what he has done in his life to get to where he is right now. And yet he has never personally, as far as I understand, experienced that presence of God, the voice of God, and interaction with God. He has heard about it from generations past, but he himself has never experienced it. And I wonder if there's any of that, like, okay, maybe it's just the old family stories. Maybe nothing good is going to happen. I have to make my own way in this world. Or maybe he truly believed it and he had to force his way into significance. I don't know. But he's never encountered that same God that he's heard about from his grandfather and his father until now. And so on the run, running for his life, running from his life, everything he has done to get into this situation, can God still be working? Is God still here? He doesn't stop at a church building or a worship center on a stage with lights. He doesn't go into a temple or a tabernacle or a synagogue, because none of those things existed. Before any of those things were built, God still encountered people. So in the dream, he saw a stairway resting on the earth and with its top reaching to the heavens. And the angels of the Lord were ascending and descending on it like this. I feel like there was a wave to it. I don't know why. Just a flow. And there above it stood the Lord, the one he heard about from his grandfather, the one he heard about from his father, and probably the one that he thought Esau was supposed to be encountering. Behind the scenes, is God still working? Behind the scenes, is God still bringing something beautiful out of the dysfunction? Behind the scenes, is God still doing something beautiful? And so he sees the Lord, and the Lord said, I am the Lord, the God of your father Abraham, and the God of your father Isaac. I'm the one that met your grandpa years ago, and I'm the one that saved your dad. And this is what I say to you. I will give you and your descendants the land in which you are now laying on. Your descendants will be like the dust of the earth, and it will spread from the east to the west, the north and the south. All peoples on the earth will be blessed through you and your offspring. I am with you. And I will watch over you wherever you go. And I will bring you back to this land. This is the same promise. I will make your descendants as vast as dust. I will make you a blessing to all nations. I will give you this land. It was more than just the birthright that Isaac gave thinking it was Esau. This is God reestablishing his covenant. Is God still working in the midst of dysfunction? Is God able to encounter me whether I'm in a church or a temple or a synagogue? He is meeting Jacob in the middle of nowhere, and he is saying, I still am with you. And I will not leave you until I have done what I've promised you. We have to wrestle with that. This church building is beautiful. The church buildings around the world are beautiful, but God encounters people everywhere. And we might look at our lives as filled with dysfunction and pain and bad decisions and tensions and the confusion. And can anything beautiful come out of this? Is God still working behind the scenes? And yet here is God speaking to Jacob and saying, I'm never going to leave you. I've seen everything you've done and every decision you've made and every time you've lied and cheated and stole your way to the top. But I will make good on my promise to you. Some of us need to realize that God's faithfulness in our lives has more to do with his character than our abilities. God's making good on being faithful has more to do with who he is than who we are. Oh, he invites us to take part in it, and he invites us to say yes, and he invites us to follow his leadership. But when God makes a promise in our lives, he will make good on it. He is working behind the scenes, whether we realize it or not. And Jacob wakes up from this dream and says the only thing he can think of. Jacob woke from his sleep and he thought, surely the Lord is in this place. And I wasn't aware of it. Or John's translation, God was here, and I didn't even know it. How many of you have ever had a moment where you were caught off guard and just thought to yourself, man, God is here, and I didn't even know it. God showed up in the unexpected places. God showed up in my rebellion. God showed up in my running away. God pulled me to himself before I ever tried to pursue him. God gave me grace when all I gave him was a bad attitude. God gave me forgiveness even though I never extended it to other people. God made something beautiful out of my life when I just thought it was ashes. Or God showed up in the most mundane of places when I was just parenting, or just at work, or just sitting outside. God was here, and I didn't even know it. That phrase has been wrecking me for the last several months of just this, God, I want to be more aware that you are here even when I don't know it, when I don't see it, and when it doesn't seem like you're working in the background, you're there. And when it seems like all the decisions of the world are falling on my shoulders, you're actually involved. And when I think the worries of the world and the darkness of the world is really, really overwhelming, you are still working. And you're still doing something beautiful. And even if I mess up 100 times, you still stand on the top of that stairway and say, I will never leave you until I fulfill the promises I've made in your life. I'm here, if we'll only see it. God was here, is what Jacob realized. God was here. And God can show up in the most unexpected ways and the most unexpected seasons of our lives. And maybe you're here and you don't even know why you came to church, or you're tuning in and you don't even know why you're doing it. Your whole life has been a runaway from the idea of God or religion or faith or a divine, any of that. And yet there is something pulling at your heart because he's been pursuing you long before you decided to pursue him. Or maybe you're in a runaway season and you're running away from God, but God is here. I love it when I bring this idea up that God was here, because inevitably I get people who ask this theological question, and I love it when people throw out the theological question. And someone often says something like this, but isn't God everywhere? Right? Well, of course God is here. Or we pray prayers before a service or before a big event, and I'll pray something like, God, I just ask you to be here. And usually after the prayer, someone's like, I have a question. Isn't God always everywhere? So why are you praying for him to be here? Do you have your theology right? I love it when people ask that, because this is the way that I think of it. And this is the way I want us to think of it. As you go through your mundane life, if you have kids over in kids' church, you have to go pick them up. And it's like the inevitable Sunday drive after church where you thought things were going to be okay, and then chaos strikes. Or maybe you're going into interactions in a marriage or a family or friends, like you go and you leave this building. This is a good place. We know God is here. This is where God is supposed to be. This is where he lives. This is like his giant 20-room apartment. This is like his building. He lives here. This is his house. Out there, God's not out there. My work is out there. My family's out there. My life is out there. The mundane is out there. My rebellion, my living away, my habitual temptations, my issues, my shortcomings, my burned bridges and friendships, all that's out there. But God's in here. He's not out there. But, so we ask ourselves, isn't God everywhere? This is the way I think of it. How many of you have ever been in a waiting room? Like a hospital waiting room, a dentist waiting room, an office room, right? How many ever been in an elevator, which is really just a waiting room in between floors? You ever thought of it that way? You're just in a waiting room? How many of you have ever been in a waiting space with someone else? Like they're there in the office or the elevator with you, right? Yeah. How often have you ever been in a waiting space with someone else and never talked to them? Right? What do? We sit down, we wait for our name to be called, we pull this out and just... Or maybe if we're sophisticated, we have a book. You are the fancy people. And we know it. You're better than us. And we hold it against you. We judge you as we take pictures and post it on the internet. Look at this guy reading. Who reads? That's what we do. The way that I think about is God everywhere, and yet why do I ask him to be here, is that there's a difference between being present and being acknowledged. Theologically, is God everywhere? Yes, I believe that God is everywhere at all times. But God could be sitting in a waiting room with me and I never talk to him. God could be sitting in that waiting room with me and I never acknowledge him. God could be sitting in that crisis that I'm having with friends, and I never talk to him. God could be sitting in the waiting room of my marriage, and I never acknowledge him in the midst of the dysfunction. God could be sitting in the room with me as I'm wrestling with my temptations and my shortcomings and those addictions that I still struggle with, and I never acknowledge that he's there. God is sitting in the waiting room as I'm changing diapers and tickling my girls and snuggling with him and never realizing that this is a God moment and God was here and I never even knew it. God can be in the space and I never acknowledge him. And so when I pray, God, will you be here? What I'm really saying is, God, I acknowledge that you are here and I want you to be present. I want you to be a part of my life. Beyond the Sunday services, beyond the classes and programs, I just want you here. Would you help me see more of you and who you are in your heart? God, would you let me know that I haven't run too far away, that you can't do something beautiful in my life? God, would you still speak significance into me, whether it's listening to a sermon by the First Free Teaching Team or I'm just in my car? God, would you be here present with me? Will you help me see the beautiful things that you're doing in this world so that I'm not just overcome with the darkness around me? Would you help me see that you are still working behind the scenes even when I don't acknowledge it? God, would you be with me? Is a way of saying, hey, what are you waiting for? Which floor are you going to? It's acknowledging the person that's in the waiting space with you and saying, God, I just want you to be here. Even if I don't get the outcome that I'm looking for. Because I think sometimes the wrestling that we have with, okay, God is here and I didn't even know it, but this situation still went bad. This thing didn't end up the way that I wanted it to. I didn't get the outcome I was hoping for. And so we equate whether God is present with whether we get the outcome we were hoping for. If I don't get the outcome that I wanted in the situation, then obviously God wasn't there. His presence isn't just me getting what I want. His presence is his standing in front of me saying, I will never leave you or forsake you, and I will bring about what I promised you, not what you promised yourself, not what you told me was going to happen. I will continue to be with you and never leave you until I've accomplished everything that I have promised you in your life. I will always be with you, and that is the gift, is that God is here even if I didn't know it. Whatever season of life you may be in right now. Maybe it's a runaway season or a deceitful season. Maybe you're in the season of life where you're just running away and you don't even know why you're here and you had no plans whatsoever of listening to church today. Or maybe you're in a runaway season. You grow up in this, you know it, you've learned it to an extent, but I just want to avoid everything that I think God is putting on my heart. I want to run away from all of it, and maybe it's out of insecurity, it's out of addiction, it's out of pain, it's out of hurt, it's out of a wound, but I'm just running away from God. I know how he's calling me to act in this situation, but I'm going to avoid it. I want nothing to do with God in this time. God is saying, I'm still with you. If you run, I'm going to run with you. If you fight me, I'll be right there with you. If you want nothing to do with me, I will still wait with you. Or maybe you look at your life and you think, I'm just in a wasted season of time. I have so much regret over the last year or 5 years or 10 years. I feel like I've wasted so much time. I've wasted time with my spouse. I've wasted time with my giftings. I've wasted time with my job. I've wasted time with my kids. I've wasted so much time. I don't think anything beautiful can still come out of this. Is God still working behind the scenes? God is here even if you don't know it. And he hasn't given up on you and he never will. Or maybe you're simply in a mundane season. It's the 9-to-5 grind or the 8-to-4, the 12-hour shifts, or maybe it's the stay-at-home parent and you're just feeling like, I think it's been 2 days since I've showered. I'm constantly doing laundry, prepping meals, doing dishes. I clean a room only to have to clean it 50 more times. It never stays clean. This never stays put together. I can't stay up with dusting. My windows are terrible. I hate this dog. This is all hypothetical. There's nothing spiritual about my life. And the only time I think there's something spiritual happening is if I go to that building on Mason Street. Beloved, God is here even if you don't know it. God's right there as you're making those lunches or in class if you're a student. God's with you as you're driving the car to soccer practice or pick up or drop off. God is there in your times of mourning and crying, and he's with you in your times of joy and celebration. If only I would acknowledge that he's there and make myself ask him, God, where are you, even if I don't see it? And if I find myself in a place where I feel like I've just run too far away, I remind myself of the words that he said to Jacob. I am the Lord, the God of your father Abraham and the God of Isaac. I'm the God who promised you something. And I will give you and your descendants the land in which you're lying. Your descendants will be like the dust of the earth, and you will spread out to the west and to the east, to the north and to the south. All peoples on the earth will be blessed through you and your offspring. And beloved, I'm with you. And I will watch over you wherever you go. And if you run away, I'll be with you. If you fight me, I'll be with you. If you turn your back on me, I'll wait for you. And in the mundane seasons, I'm right there with you. I will bring you back to this land. I will not leave you until I've done what I've promised. I will not leave you until I've done what I've promised you. If I can give you one last message before this summer, it would be this. God was here, even if you didn't know it. Would you stand? God, I pray for each and every one of us as we're here, as we're tuning in online or watching this later. Wherever we find ourselves right now, caught in the runaway, caught in the deceit, caught in the rebelliousness, the rebellious spirit, the rebellious attitude, the rebellion against you. If we feel like we're stuck in wasted time and regret of how we've lived for the last several years, or we just feel like we're in a mundane season of life, that 9-to-5 grind, that the marriage and parenting and work and the house and all of it. God, I pray that we would leave here and you would allow us to recognize a different perspective, that you are here, whether we realize it or not. And would you catch us off guard? Maybe it's in a dream. Maybe it's driving our car or sitting in our office or walking outside. Would you give us those moments of, oh, this is an everyday holy moment? And to anyone who feels like they've run too far away, would you speak life into their heart? That you have always been working behind the scenes, calling them to you. That you are here even if we don't see it. I thank you for this place and the honor to be a part of it. And I pray that you bless them in your name. Amen. If you need prayer for anything, you can come up. We'll have prayer teams available. Thank you all very much.